Hey, welcome to your reading. This is the first time that I've used this YouTube Live to do this, so the audio and the video quality is not very good. Hopefully, there's no interruptions and you understand me. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, I don't know if you went over the Pluto first house documents that I sent you, but I want to talk a little bit about that because a lot of times, we can read something, and if it's written in a particular style or it's the time we're hearing it, it doesn't really register with us. So I just want to go over that, really important for you. Pluto first house, they have, most Pluto first house carry a lot of anger and frustration. And a lot of times they will project this out into their environment. So they'll say, it's this person this way that caused me to be angry, or this circumstance, when in reality that's not the case. It's due to these two competing compulsions within the Pluto first house soul. And because Pluto deals with the subconscious desires, we're talking about subconscious compulsions. And that's why these things out onto others, because it's subconscious and they can't really understand what's going on with them. So the first compulsion is this need to have new experiences, because the Aries, the person with the Aries soul nature is discovering who they are. And we can't build an ego or a sense of who we are without having experiences. And a lot of times these are tied to other people. So other people are acting as a mirror so that we can, figure out who we are and who we're not. We might get involved with a specific person in a relationship, and this person has these traits, and, we find them like distasteful, or we can't quite stomach these traits of this person. So we'll say, okay, that's not me. So I know that that's not me. So then what am I? And they keep going through these different relationships and experiences to answer that question. Who am I and what am I? That's the Aries. That's the Aries thing. So, okay, so the first compulsion is to have these experiences, and compulsion means that it's something that's beyond their will. It's something that they need versus something that they want. And these experiences that they're compelled to have are instinctual in nature, meaning that it's not some pre-thought out thing like, oh, I think I want to learn more about this subject, or have this experience for this reason, yada yada yada, whatever the case might be. That's not the Aries way. The Aries way is instinctual, so it's coming from this place that they don't even know where or why it's there. It just is. So they might see an advertisement for rock climbing, and automatically they sense within themselves that they need to have this experience in order to grow and to develop that sense of who they are, and their sense of self. So that's the first compulsion. And then the second compulsion is competing with the first one. So in the first compulsion, it's the desire to have the experiences to figure out who we are. But then in the other one, we want to not have experiences. We want to stay safe and fall back on our predefined sense of self that we've managed to fashion thus far from the experiences that we've already had. So, it's, I don't have Pluto first house, but my oldest daughter has it, and I know a few other people who have it, and I can imagine how frustrating this would be, to feel like I have to have this experience to, this is fundamental to what I'm doing, at the subconscious soul level. And then at the same time feeling like, it's scary, or it's just taken away your security to have to do that, to have that experience. And this is the source of the anger and the frustration that Pluto first house souls can feel. And now that you have this knowledge, or anybody who has Pluto in the first house, when they have this knowledge, they can stop projecting that onto people in their relationships and circumstances in their environment. Because what they'll do is they'll have, this fear of having the experience, and instead of knowing that consciously, they're saying, oh, this person is stopping me from having this experience for whatever reason. It could be like duty. Let's just say that you're a parent, you're a father, and you want to have a certain experience, and you can tell that you really need to do that. You're afraid to. And so then you would blame your partner and say, oh, I can't have this experience because, I don't have enough money because I have to work for a living to take care of my family. That's just one example. So this is something that can happen with souls who have Pluto in the first, is that projecting that inner anger and frustration out onto others and thinking that they're the cause of it. And in fact, it's something that's coming from inside of themselves. So that takes us to, okay, now that we're aware of that, and that is happening, inside of us, what does that mean for our relationships with other people? Once that becomes conscious, it's going to help a lot, and that, help you to grow and like emotional maturation and all these other things. But it's also going to make you aware that maybe the traditional way of relating or being in relationship is not for you. And once you realize that can take a lot of the crazy away, because a lot of people, they live according to what society says they should be doing. The perfect relationship is I find this person, and then I stay with them, as long as they're making me, meeting my requirements. And then if the relationship is deemed, selfish or one-sided or only there for a specific reason, then, that's somehow failing at love or failing at being in relationships. And the ideal, I think I've already mentioned this in some of my other videos, is the Libran way of relating, where everything's fair and everything's equal, and the person takes other people's opinions and needs into consideration. But that's really not the function of Aries relationships. So the function of Aries relationships is to teach the individual about themselves. So that way, when the Aries soul senses that this other person is no longer able to teach me about myself or to help me learn things about myself, then they feel like they want to end their relationship. And a lot of times subconsciously they'll get with people that are not a really good match for them, so that when that time comes, they'll have an excuse to leave the relationship. Instead of knowing what's going on subconsciously and internally, they want to make, a little escape route that the conscious mind can have some grip and control over. So yeah, I wrote some notes here. That's what I'm looking at over here. So for somebody who has Pluto in the first house, it's important that they realize these things, and that anybody that they get with, they explain to them, I'm somebody who requires freedom to act on any impulses that I have. That's not a want, that's a need, that's a necessity for me and for my soul, and for where I'm at. So usually subconsciously the Aries person will get with the Libra person, or somebody who's really clingy, and that's the last person that they should get with. um, while they're still learning and learning how to integrate the opposing energies, that's a good match because it's teaching them. But once all these things become conscious and you realize, how you're operating and where you're coming from, then that's no longer needed. Once you start being able to integrate the opposing energies of Libra and whatever other opposing energies that you have in your evolutionary axis, then you can start choosing relationships that are based on, a more that come from a more conscious place instead of subconscious. If that makes any sense. Okay, so I covered that. And then the next thing I want to talk about or go over was your evolutionary axis itself, which is Pluto, the nodes, and then the rulers of the nodes. Okay, so we did Pluto. So that's a subconscious desire. And then the next thing we look at are the nodes, which are, the egos, South Node, past life ego, and then, present moon, which is how the soul is emotionally integrating, all of these experiences on a day-to-day basis, and then how that will turn into how they're able to integrate the energies of their North Node. So we look at, okay, how does the South Node fulfill the desires of Pluto? So in your instance, your South Node is in, I believe it's Sagittarius in the third house. So how does Sagittarius in the third house fulfill the desires of Aries? That, self discovery and I can't think of a good word right now, but I think you understand Aries pretty well. I mean, you've been studying astrology for longer than I have, so I'm sure you got it. Okay, so South Node, Sagittarius, third house. This is a person, and it's kind of hard with paradoxical charts because you don't know which energy they primarily, souls with this primarily dealt with in their past life. But I looked at the ruler, and I think for you, in the past, you were more leaning towards the Sagittarius side of this, this energy combination. Because your South Node ruler is Sagittarius in the second house. And then I'll explain, what my interpretation is of that, which, could be completely wrong. These are just suggestions, and ideas that you can ponder about, how you feel these energies have played out in your present life. And then that gives you clues about your past life. Anyways, let me put the notes that I wrote before I ramble on any further. Okay, so Pluto, first house. Desire to create a sense of oneself through the mirror of others and relationships. How does the South Node fulfill that? South Node, Sagittarius. Doing this through knowledge and belief systems. That's the Sagittarius Gemini combination. And then I put that these are perfect energies because they're not too attached to people. Aries likes to have that freedom, and it doesn't really want to settle down with any one person because everything's orientated around the individual. And then with Gemini and Sagittarius, it's the same thing. it's my discovery comes first, which is appropriate for the soul that's carrying these energies in that configuration. The ruler, you find that by whatever sign is on your south node, which is Sagittarius for you. The ruling planet is Jupiter. So you look at where Jupiter is in your chart, and for you it's in Sagittarius in the second house. So the south node ruler tells you like how you were going about your past life, ego expression. And I wrote, your personal beliefs, Sagittarius, have helped define your personal values or what gives meaning to your life. That's the second house, Taurus. Now, when we look at that, okay, so that's this side. That's where you're at and where you've been. And hold on, I gotta plug my battery in. My computer in, sorry. So there's that side, and then you want to look at, okay, how is Pluto south node and the south node ruler, how is that going to get you to future you, the energies that you're asked to integrate? So Pluto, of course, is getting to all the way over to Libra, but that's happening, over like the next 4 lifetimes. So that's like a long range goal for your soul. That's not happening in this life. You're not getting to Libra in this life. You're working towards getting there, and the way that you're working towards that is through your north node in the current life. So because we could tell there was more emphasis on the Sagittarius side in your past life, that means that for this current life, you're going to want to go more towards the Gemini, side of those two energies, the north node. Sagittarius south node, which was utilizing the Gemini, the knowledge to, I guess, find different religions and belief systems that gave you a sense of, value and meaning to your life. But then during the course of this lifetime, you're going to be asked to learn to let go of such a strong identification with those beliefs. And the reason that you have such a strong identification, which is always a Sagittarius thing, is because it's helping you to define who you are and to understand who you are, which is the Pluto first house subconscious, desire. So for the north node, I wrote, asked to let go of with beliefs, realize the subjectiveness of truth, and become more curious. So Gemini is, with Sagittarius, it's fixed beliefs. It's, I know the truth and nobody's going to change my mind. This is, the religious fanatic at the extreme, at the extreme shadow level. I know the truth, and I'm, it's just no. That's all I can say is no, that's not good. And then, so once the soul realizes that, or the person realizes that there is no such thing as an objective truth, they've been around long enough to know that, the shadow side of Sagittarius is not the way to go, especially if you want to be happy in this life and feel connected to other people and to God, or whatever you call God. Different people call him different things, but let's see, where was I going with this? Yeah, so it's that, it's realizing that there is no universal truth, and realizing that there is a subjective truth. So every person holds their own truth, and that is the only truth that exists. There's not one version of truth, and nobody has, has, I guess, I don't know what the right word is, has a hold on it or a stake in it. So the Gemini is opening, it's just softening, it's softening that strong grip on feeling like I know everything now. And again, that's for everything that we do is for security reasons. Nobody wants to feel insecure. And we're talking about, ideas regarding spirituality and the big questions, where did I come from? Why am I here? Where will I go after I die? I mean, you can't get much more insecure than that. So of course, human beings, we want to have things figured out, and we want to say, okay, if you're Christian, after I die, I'm going to go either to heaven or hell, depending on how I've been. And if you belong to a different religion, it's a different belief system, but we want to have things figured out. Anyways, so the experiences that you have during your lifetime that's what they're doing. They're breaking down that security by forcing you outside of yourself to have these experiences so that you'll come to this realization. Maybe you already have. I mean, every soul's journey is different. But, somewhere along the way, whether it was in the past, or maybe it's happening now, or maybe it'll happen in the future, there's this realization that, what I thought was the truth is not. And then there goes the security once again. Okay, so the North Node ruler, this one I'm kind of like scratching my head about. It is, so Gemini is Mercury, so the ruler is Mercury, and Mercury is where? Pisces in the 5th house, I believe. Yes, that's right. Okay, so that means that the way that you'll be getting to this, more Geminian, open, curious self is by utilizing the energies of Pisces and then Leo, which is representative of the 5th house. Because in evolutionary astrology, we don't use houses. We say that every house is representative of the energy associated with it. So for you, that would be a Pisces-Leo combination, because Leo naturally sits in the 5th house. So the note that I wrote, excuse me, you would do this by a talent, 5th house, Leo, or personally identifying with 1st house, Pluto, a transcendent form of spirituality. That's where the 12th house or the Pisces comes in. And I was thinking back to our conversation on the phone and how you seemed really careful to not want to be like seeming egotistical and things like that. And I think, this has a lot to do with your past lives, which I think you already feel like a sense of what had happened or who you were in a past life. And there's some humility, in your current, in your current emotional body, there's some humility there, which, you've had to learn from the happenings that went on in your past life. And that was just something that kind of, stood out to me about our conversation. Now, this Pisces-Leo combination, it could be, because Leo is about, this is the shining star, the sun. Everybody look at me, based on something Piscean, so something really spiritual. This is how you're going to get to your North Node energy, and how you're going to open up and not be so, you know, I guess, I hate trying to think of words. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. So the whole, the whole Leo thing, as I think about letting people see you, because I saw some of this on some other parts of your reading that I'm going to go over later. It's just that, that difficulty with where you're currently at, and learning how to integrate that you know, into society, or not even society, but like letting other people into your world, I would say. So, you've had the Aries experiences for about half of your lifetimes now with this whole, I'm having these experiences to create a sense of who I am. And then you've taken these experiences inside, which is the Taurus thing, internalizing the experiences to think, to make sense of what they've meant for you. And, like I said, sift between, okay, I've experienced this person, I know I'm not that, but what am I? Who am I? And then you went through the whole Taurus thing, and now your soul is at the Gemini thing. Like how technical that is, Gemini thing. It's about, taking, okay, I've had the experiences, Aries, I've internalized them, Taurus, and now I have to conceptualize them and bring them outside. Aries is yang, it's going out, and then Taurus is in, taking the experiences in. Gemini, yang again, taking, what I've understood and what values I've gained from this, and then taking it out and sharing it with other people to further that whole process. Yeah, so I think, for you, it's about learning to be vulnerable and, realizing all this stuff, that you are creating this sense of self. You don't have everything figured out. Nobody does, no matter what they want to think, nobody has everything figured out. And it's really hard to be, vulnerable. And it's even hard for me. I want to feel like I have everything figured out, and that I'm a really good astrologer, and that's just not the case. We all need each other, and we all have things that we can teach each other. So I think, learning how to be the master on one hand, which you probably are a master at certain aspects of astrology because you've been studying it for so long. But then on the other hand, there's things that, people could really help you with. So if you can learn how to be more open in that area, I think that would really help you out, in your relationships and just your goals and every aspect of your life. Okay, I'm not going to say any more about that. I tend to ramble on, and I know I don't like listening to people ramble on. Okay, so let's move on. I want to look at some of the planetary pairs. Okay. So I looked at your Pluto and Mars phase, and it's in an opposition. If you look on your chart, I'm sure you already know that Pluto and Mars is, about 180 degrees away from each other.